All right, today is June 6, 2019. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes Storage Special Interest Group. So today on the agenda, we're going to go through 1.15 items that we've been working on and get status updates on them. And I see there are a couple of items for design review as well as PRs to discuss and miscellaneous items. So we'll get to those after planning. Last meeting was canceled due to KubeCon. We had a strong attendance at KubeCon with lots of interest in storage, so that went well. If you're interested, those videos are posted on YouTube under the CNCF channel. Feel free to take a look at those. So let's go ahead and get started with the planning. Important dates to know here are we've already passed the code freeze date, so that means the major functionality that we wanted to get in had to get in by May 30th. We are now officially in code freeze. Second date that just passed us was the docs completion date. So if you have any features that are new, the docs must be reviewed and completed by June 4th. That was Tuesday. If that's not done, you need to get that done as soon as possible. And then the next date is June 17th. Which is when Kubernetes 1.15 should be released. So let's go ahead and do a update here to see what features made it into this release and which features did not. So what we're going to do is do an end of quarter status. And let's go ahead and get started with that. First item is migration engine for the entry volume plugin to CSI migration.
So we made good progress on that. We made like entry changes around resizing as well as making sure that entry volumes are fully supported. And this is on top of the existing changes from 1.14, which handled provisioning, deprovisioning, attach, detach, and mount. So block volumes are also supported. What's remaining is the external sidecar work around supporting inline volumes and resizing. So that should be wrapped up by this week or tops early next week.
Okay.
Also to add to that, so this release, we added migration support for inline volumes, block, and resizing. Attach limits did not make it in, so that will have to be done for 1.16.
Cool. All right. So in terms of what we set out to do, I think we completed most of it except for the attach limits, and we're tracking that as a separate item. So I'm okay marking this as done for this quarter. Thoughts?
Yeah, and also target status should remain alpha.
Right. That was because of the API changes. Okay. And then CI and testing for migration. Any updates on that?
So David has added CI testing infrastructure, and it's currently running for the PD CSI driver. I'm not sure about the status of the other migrated drivers.
Okay. So it sounds like the infrastructure is there. It's been implemented for one plugin. It needs to be implemented for other plugins.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Cool. Thank you, Michelle. Next item is CSI out of tree adding support for volume resizing, volume expansion. Hemant? Looks like Hemant might not be on the call with us today.
Okay. I can give an update on his behalf. All the in-tree changes have gone in. Which item is this? Is this for out of tree?
This is, let's Yeah, out of tree, add support for online, offline resizing.
Okay. I think that's still in progress, all
Okay.
the out of tree stuff. But all the in tree changes are in.
Okay. I wonder if we were tracking that separately. Let me check.
I'm not sure. Also, I don't know if this is being tracked separately, but the online expansion has also moved to beta, the in-tree online expansion.
Got it. So let's say all in-tree work complete, in-tree online moved to beta, and out of tree still in progress. Now, last update was that resizing was going to remain in alpha. Do you know what part of resizing that was mentioning?
That is CSI resizing.
Okay. So all entry work completed, entry online moving to beta, CSI resizing, remaining alpha. Okay, so basically what we should do next quarter is bring everything into parity, bring everything to beta, and then everything moves lockstep to GA. All right, next item is CSI pod inline volume support. How did we do here? Vlad or Kevin, do you have any updates?
I can update on their behalf.
Sure, thank you.
Vlad has added the pod security policy implementation for the inline volume API. He has also fixed all of the issues with the in-tree implementation. So now you should be able to run an ephemeral driver against it. The actual E2E tests are still not there yet.
It looks like it's functionally complete, but not yet tested.
Yeah, it's been manually tested.
Okay. And that code is already merged?
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to call that complete, and then we'll have to pick up the testing next quarter. Next item is moving the mount library to external common repo. Travis, any updates on this? Looks like we have a pretty small group today, so Travis is not with us. Michelle?
Yep, I can update again. He's been making good progress on this, but it's still not fully complete. But I think the end of the line is within reach for next
Were
release.
the PRs merged that were in flight?
Yeah.
And are there any other entry PRs?
There's going to be at least 2 more in-tree PRs that are needed to finish this. One of them he has out already, and I'm reviewing it. And then once that one's in, then I think everything should be ready and we can move the whole thing into staging.
Okay. And considering we are past code freeze, that means this is slipping into next quarter?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So we'll mark that as started. And then we have per node volume attach limits. It sounds like that did not make it.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Okay. Next item is volume capacity, usage metrics, and documentation. Humble, is there any chance he's online?
No, the PR merged.
Okay.
I'm not sure if there's any documentation for it. We might need to look into that. Because
Yeah,
this was sort of tracked as a bug fix, not a feature.
yeah, but I can ask Humble to document this and this thing, so I'll ask him.
Okay.
I think this should be documented, at least in CSI docs.
Okay. We'll call that done then. Snapshot delete volume finalizer. When Snapshot is being created, we want to make sure that we don't accidentally delete it. Xing, any updates on that?
Yeah, so this is done. I added documentation, also merged, so this can be marked complete.
Nice. All right, thank you for that. And we'll call that fully complete because docs are merged as well. Snapshot execution hook.
So this one, I sent out email requesting to create a repo for this, and then you replied, sounds good to me. So I opened the request in Kubernetes org, but they're saying that we need someone from SIG apps, to approve it. Otherwise, it can't be. So still waiting for that. I haven't heard anything from SIG apps.
Okay, we can get probably Ken Owens to take ownership of this. He's the SIG apps lead, so.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. And the goal here was alpha. It sounds like we got the design done this quarter.
We got design done, and then I have some POC code. So if the repo is created, then I can start to move code there.
Okay. So how about we change the finish line to design, call this done,
Yeah.
and next quarter we'll move it to alpha?
Sure.
Okay. And next item is automating the Sidecar release and test process for CSI out of tree end-to-end tests. So last status here was done and no more work needed. Is that still accurate, Michelle?
Yeah, I think the only thing that we're looking at automating further is the release notes generation.
Got it.
But yeah, that doesn't really need to be tracked here.
Okay. Next item is refactoring kubelet device plugin to reconciliation model. This work was completed and merged. So we're good here. There was a few outstanding bugs that came out of it, but those we can work on next quarter. The functionality is feature complete. Next item is enabling PVC as a data source for volume cloning. John Griffith, any updates on that? So I reviewed the PR for this and it was merged before code freeze. So entry work was complete. Out of tree, I think, was still pending. I haven't taken a look at it since. And I'm not sure about documentation. So those things probably need to be wrapped up soon.
At least entry documentation is done.
Okay, good. So then out of tree, it sounds like we just have out of tree pending then. So it's almost there. I'm going to mark it as started and done to kind of indicate it's almost there. Volume snapshot transfer design. So I believe the KEP here didn't get merged. We'll need to continue to work on the KEP. I haven't seen any updates on this, so I don't think. Next, we have moving the iSCSI driver out to a separate repo. So last status here was the PR was out and Ben was going to help review that. Does anyone have an update on that?
Where is the PR? Is there a link to it? Because I do plan on reviewing it, but I don't have a...
That is a good question. It should be, I think, underneath. If you go to Kubernetes CSI organization, there will be a CSI driver iSCSI repo, I believe, and it should probably be the only PR underneath that repo.
Right,
yeah, Ben, I think you're assigned to it.
All right. Is there an easy way to find things that are assigned to you? Because that's never been easy for me.
Yeah, there's these tabs that I use. So if you go to GitHub issues assigned, that'll open up everything that's assigned to you.
It should be PRs.
Oh yeah, there's a PR version as well.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I think I see it.
Cool. All right, so we'll leave that as pending for now. And then we have volume expansion for stateful sets.
Yeah,
oh,
so
actually, hang on, there's a bunch of things missing here.
Yeah, like a few rows are probably missing.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So everything after 17. Somebody must have messed with the filters. Okay, so 15 we talked about. Okay, let's go through the ones that we missed here. Scalability testing, looks like we didn't get started there. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to mark that as not started. This issue, following up on it, I don't think we got any progress there. So group volume snapshots, consistency groups. Xing, as far as I know, there was no progress made here, right?
Yeah, it's just still design in progress, I guess, but there's not much.
Okay. So we'll have to pick that up next quarter. Generic data populator, I didn't see any updates there either. I think that'll become more important next quarter. It's good that we got the volume cloning stuff in because that's one piece of this, but the generic data population isn't there yet. Moving NFS volume to separate repo. Excuse me. Mathusin or Pratik, any updates on this? As far as I can tell, the work here was actually completed.
Yeah, I think most of this stuff is complete. I think the only thing remaining is maybe some testing, automated testing, and I'm not sure if the container image building was done either.
Okay. Okay, so we can continue to work on that this quarter. Mark that as started and started. And then iSCSI we just talked about. Fiber channel, was there any progress on that one?
No, we're looking for someone to review.
Okay. So we'll say not started yet. Move that to next quarter. Non-recursive volume ownership. Hemant, any updates on that?
Jing has an idea, and she's going to open a cap this quarter. I hope to track this. So we had discussed, we had a bunch of calls for this, and I think there's a solution that will work. And I'm just waiting for her to open the cap.
Yes, it's related to the performance improvements for setting volume ownership, because right now it is the recursive way, and how we can, like, say, improve by skip if it's already set. But it's still like in discussion. So next quarter we will like try to have a formal like proposal for that.
Okay. So the goal here was a design, so we could say we got started on the design, just haven't completed it yet. Next up is file permission handling for Windows.
So it's kind of tied to the previous item.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll just have to sync on it.
Sounds good. And then revisiting UID, GID handling, which is also very much related.
Right, I think so.
Okay. Brad, is there anything you wanted to add to that for the UID, GID stuff? Okay.
It's still stressing us out, though.
Yes. Jing actually has some cool ideas here that we can consider for next quarter. Okay, next item is volume expansion for stateful sets. This was blocked on somebody from SIG Apps, Sidak. Hemant, did you get a chance to sync up with him at all?
No, apparently he was busy, and he has responded on the PR just yesterday that he wants to set up the call. So I said, yeah, let's do that. So that's the latest on it. It was a design goal anyway for
okay.
last quarter. It was not a...
Okay, so to that end, I guess we got it started. Next item is CSI Volume Health. Last status here was Nick Wren had an overall design doc. Xing is working on part of it for CSI. Any updates on that?
Yeah, so Nick has submitted a cap for that. So that covers the overall design and also how to handle local volumes. I have a Google Doc that covers the CSI part. Have not submitted a cap yet. Maybe I should do that.
Okay. Do we want to have a separate doc for CSI as well as the overall design, or can we just bundle it together?
Yeah, that's my question. Just why I have not submitted one.
I think bundling it together at this point makes sense. I want to treat CSI as just part of the infrastructure, and any functionality that we add should just assume that we're also adding it to CSI.
Yeah, okay, sure. I will talk to Nick. I will just try to submit them together.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Next item is post-GA entry volume topology. There was some work that needed to be done here in terms of switching the default storage classes to late binding. And
yeah, this was not started.
Okay, no worries. So let's say not started. Pass ownership created by metadata from stateful sets to PVCs. This was a design. Did we get the KEP drafted?
No, we're still sort of in brainstorming phase, but Haley has a document out, and I've been working with her on it.
Okay.
Probably next release, we should be able to have a KEP.
Okay. Pluggable end-to-end test framework documentation.
This has been completed.
Okay.
I think we have a page now on the Kubernetes CSI page on how you can use the test framework.
Okay.
I think now the only thing remaining is we just need to publicize it.
Okay, so maybe next steps here are a blog post. And we can shout about it loud and wide. All right, thank you for all your work on that. Done and done. CSI entry read-only handling. We were looking for owners here. I don't think we ever found an owner, right?
Correct.
Okay. So we'll mark that as incomplete and move that to next quarter. CSI spec alpha beta GA designation. This work got started. I did not get a chance to look at it in the last 4 weeks, so I don't know what the latest on it is. I know we had agreed on what the designation would look like, but I don't know if we actually implemented anything there. So I'll call this started unless I have better information.
So this is designation for the entire spec or like parts of the spec? Or?
This is just for how are we going to handle alpha, beta, GA designations for new features to the spec.
Got it.
So there was a consensus on how we're going to do it. I'm not sure if we actually updated anything to say this is officially how we're going to do it.
Okay.
And then finally, support containerized CSI node plugins in Windows with a storage proxy executable.
Yeah, so the design and prototyping for this, we made good progress, and the KEP should be ready for early 1.16. One interesting development with respect to this is also that in SIG Windows, there's been some movement around seeing if we can do privileged containers directly with support that directly in Windows. So, so yeah, we will continue this investigation, but depending on how that process goes, we might have to course correct a bit.
Nice. That would be great. And it would be privileged containers as well as mount namespace propagation.
That is correct.
Okay. That's awesome. That would make it natively equal. So, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you all for the status updates and thanks for all the hard work here. I think we still got a considerable amount done this quarter. A lot of what we were doing was probably not going to be finished in a single quarter. So that's why we have a lot of orange here, and we'll pick up those items for next quarter and finish off. I'm going to create a new tab here for 1.16. Feel free to start adding items there. As soon as I do, I'll send out an email. And then in our next meeting in 2 weeks, we'll discuss our 1.16 items and what we're going to commit to. All right, moving on from planning, let's move on to PRs that need attention. We have this one here. Failed to unmount NFS when connection was lost. Who added this and who wants to talk about it?
I think I added this. So because it's an issue like been a while, we kind of I think discussed a little bit before, but want to get a consensus like what we should do. Basically, it's very simple, right? We have an NFS server, and the client, and when server is down, and when we tear down the pod, right, we fail to unmount because the amount will just hang there. And there is a PR. Maybe you can move down a little bit. We can see the PR.
This one?
I think so. And basically, the solution there is to add a force option during unmount. And I think we have a question about whether this force option should be used for all unmounts and whether it's necessary, because force means even if when you unmount, and sometimes you get error of like device is busy because some process is using it, and the force will just like force to unmount no matter what process is using it, whether we might cause some data correction problem. And so normally before we unmount, we make sure, right, all the container already terminated and there should not some process still using this volume. However, we may not be able to, like, there's some cases that somehow some process still using it.
Jing, how confident are you that the force option actually does solve this problem?
Solve the problem. I cannot say that for sure because I'm not an NFS expert. So
yeah, I was going to say with NFS hard mounts, I've seen situations where even an unmount -f will not get you unmounted, and you can really get wedged. The option to do a force unmount with NFS is a step forward, but I bet you that there will still be weird scenarios where that's not enough.
Yeah, the man page of like I investigated this a little bit as well, and the documentation of force itself says that it may not work in many cases.
Yeah, it tries harder to unmount, but if you have a hard mount in NFS and the server is out to lunch, you're in a really tight spot, because hard mount means you have to talk, you block everything until the server comes back, basically.
yeah,
which is really bad for a distributed system.
Then what option we have? Either one, we just leave it like as it is today. We don't solve the problem. So if that happens, somehow user need to manually either restart the NSS server. I think if you restart NFS server, we no longer have the hanging amount problem issue. That's my guess. And or user has to manually go inside and unmount it. Otherwise, your pod is stuck there. And second option, like here, force. But yes, it cannot solve all the problems. Seems, but I'm not sure what's the percentage of like force amounts can help solve this hanging issue.
It might be good to understand, like, why in the first place did this user delete their NFS server?
Well, it could be a network partition, right? The server could be temporarily unreachable.
But then what?
Or the server.
I mean, if the server is unreachable, then like what's? I mean, this isn't going to prevent another pod from coming and trying to connect and failing too. Like if the server is deleted, nothing is going to be able to reach this pod.
Yes.
And is
yes. So what I was going to suggest is there a way we could allow the pod to be deleted and make the garbage get cleaned up later? So at least we can say, yeah, the pod is shut down. There's nothing running. We can't perform the unmount because the mount is stuck waiting on the NFS server, but we can at least call the pod deleted and have some garbage collection for the mount later. Is that?
But I guess, so if we let the pod get deleted, another pod's going to come up and fail to mount the NFS server still. So like
Po-
either
Possibly,
way,
possibly. It depends on why you can't reach the server. It could just be that one node can't reach the server and another node could. Or yeah, if the server's down, then you're going to be in a bad situation no matter what.
Yeah, any arbitrary pod can just come up and try to connect that NFS server. It's not just going to be the same pod, right? So you can't. I don't think there would be a way to prevent it more generally, would it? And also, like I guess you can. What Ben described would be like a forward scale of the pod, essentially. Right, the pod object is gone. The containers on Kubelet might still be running, and Kubelet will try to delete the containers.
And users can do that today, right? They can force kill a pod if they choose to.
That's right.
But then the garbage never gets cleaned up, right?
I think the orphan pod detection stuff will still recognize that the mount hasn't been cleaned up and continue to retry.
Oh, okay. Well, that would be the ideal behavior then. You say, well, I can't reach the NFS server, so I'm going to kill the pod, and eventually the garbage will get cleaned up.
I don't remember if the orphan logic was for like when the controller's deleted.
So to be able to clean up, then that means you need to reach the NFS server again. And so that's, I'm not sure it ends up, because if it's hanging, the process is, I'm not sure we may end up have lots of hanging processes.
Well, if there's already one unmount operation going on, we are not going to start a second one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're concerned that getting stuck on the unmount will block other activities from proceeding? Is that what you're suggesting, Michelle? That the one unmount will prevent other unmounts from succeeding that should succeed?
We have operation queue where we don't let multiple unmount operations on the same volume happen at the same time.
Well, on the same volume, but other volumes could still unmount.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, okay.
But if, let's say, the first unmount operation is stuck and hanging, we're not going to start a second unmount on the same volume. So we won't have this issue of like exhausting all the threads because we're all trying to unmount the same thing.
Yeah.
That's right. Then that means that hanging process, even your NFS server reconnect, will that hanging process succeed?
Eventually, I think so.
I mean, that's the behavior of a hard mount, is it'll wait forever. It'll wait days or weeks or months for the server to come back. And when it finally does, it'll complete the operation.
And if we force delete the pod in the meantime, because we want to start a pod somewhere else, that process is just still going on, yeah.
It should be fine though, because assuming some other node could reach the server, it'll perform a mount and start up. Or if it can't, it'll just be stuck in the waiting for attach, which is the normal place to be stuck if the server's not available. I was just going to point out that, that because this NFS unmount hanging is down inside the Linux kernel, the ultimate solution to this problem is to reboot the node, which just cleans out everything, right? So people always have that recourse if their server really is unreachable, and they can just bounce the whole node. And then when it comes back up, it'll have no mounts, and Kubelet will start up and start cleaning up any garbage in the file system, and you'll eventually get back into a good state.
Yes.
It's just one of the tricky parts of NFS that I don't know there's a lot we can do to make it less bad.
Okay, so let's see. I think I see a few tries like relate to this, trying to solve this problem. So I kind of want to get a final words about how we want to deal with it.
I think the main thing is if we can understand what the end goal is, like, did they intentionally delete the NFS server and expect it to never come back ever? Or are they talking about recovering from some temporary NFS failure?
I feel I just my feeling like the second scenario is more important for them.
This is Christian. I wanted to follow up on one comment that was just made. From the thread pool perspective, so a single volume getting stuck in unmount seems fine. What if I have tons of pods mounting, dozens of different volumes, and half my pods mount an NFS server that's healthy and the other half one that's not healthy? Could the unhealthy ones collectively exhaust the thread pool and hence lead to a node in a stuck state where it's half alive and half dead?
Yes, totally.
So that sounds slightly more serious than as a scenario, right?
Well, as long as the unhealthy one becomes healthy within a reasonable amount of time, you're not in bad shape. And if it's never going to come back, then the ultimate solution is to bounce that node and clean out all those mounts that will never get cleaned up.
Yeah, and the other problem is it's not just the user space threads we're talking about, because the NFS unmount will end up getting stuck in the kernel too. So even if we had some ability to free up the user space threads, that's not going to help us free up the kernel resources that are hung.
I think the thought of using force option, probably it can help in certain cases that we don't have this hanging thread, and it can go through and release the mount like immediately. That's kind of some benefits.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly which scenarios the force helps and which ones it doesn't. I just know that it doesn't solve all your problems. It only solves some of them.
Mm.
So for certain people, it might make sense. It might be nice to have a toggle or a way to tell it, please force unmount.
Right. So let's say, for example, we gave them through some configurable like options. We have force unmount option.
Yeah, I think this is something we can easily add to a CSI driver. If a user really wants to use this force option, they can just write an NFS CSI driver that does it. I don't know if we want to enable it for everything, because at this point we don't fully understand the ramifications of doing force on everything.
Yeah, I wouldn't use it across the board, and I wouldn't even make it the default for NFS. I would make it an option for NFS.
Right. So for general CSI driver, is that possible? Just kind of passing option instead of a special CSI driver.
It could be part of your config map for your NFS CSI daemons, the driver that's doing all the attaches and detaches.
Or a storage class parameter, maybe?
Well, the problem is that you don't necessarily know when you want to do it until you get into this case. And it's not something that you want to say, hey, every time I have a mount, always do a force unmount. You want to use it as an exceptional case when you get into one of these conditions.
Right, but we could modify the NFS CSI driver to always try a regular amount, and then if you specify the special force flag to, upon failure, retry with a force.
Oh yeah, that would work.
Something like that.
Yeah, but I think
that would just be a new feature of the NFS CSI driver to have more aggressive unmounting.
Yeah, I agree. Adding it to a CSI driver makes sense. Don't add it to the core for everything. And then for the CSI driver, make it a last resort option that you have to opt into. That seems reasonable. But before you do all of that work, do the homework to understand, does this actually help, and in what percentage of cases does it help? Does it help the use cases that you're looking into?
We can pass this all these thoughts to the author of that
Cool.
PR. Yeah.
Can you update the PR?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Thank you. So 10 minutes left. Anything else on this topic? All right. We'll move on to the next one, PV health monitoring by Xing.
So actually, it looks like Nick cannot join us today. I really just want to bring this to everyone's attention. So the cap is up, please review it. Basically, this is just to check if a PV is healthy, whether it still exists, whether it's still mounted, whether it's still attached, whether it is still usable. And then if not, we're using intent to market that there is some issues with it. So that's at a high level, that's what this one is. And I will work with Nick to add the CSI design to this cap.
So it is depend.
Yes, depending on your spec. So
It should be like at the top of the cap thing, there should be a way to say depends on, and then you can point it to another cap.
Oh, is there? Okay, okay, I will take a look. I don't see.
You might have to look at the template if I don't know. I thought there was a thing, but
okay, sure. Yeah, we should add. I don't see it's in the Google Doc, and there's a link to Gene's spec, but it doesn't look like.
Yeah, so
here.
if in that, I think he
he
might have removed some of the fields from the template, but I thought in the template there was a field that lets you reference other caps.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll take a look.
Okay, so if you're interested in volume health at all, please take a look at this cap. And then maybe in the future, once there's some more consensus, Xing and Nick can maybe do a presentation here to walk folks through what the proposed design is.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Next items, we have a couple of miscellaneous items. Michelle, you're up first.
Okay. Yeah, so there is a issue identified with the storage protection feature when you use it with stateful sets. Basically, there's a problem because due to the delay of deleting PVCs until the pod is deleted, the stateful set controller won't end up recreating the PVC. And so we're looking for someone to help sort of design a fix for this. I think it mostly requires enhancing the stateful set controller to be able to retry creating PVCs.
Okay.
So the reason we want to create a new PVC because existing one, they don't want the existing one.
Yeah, they want to get rid of the old PVC and have it grab a new PVC.
So that means a new volume,
Yes.
underlying volume.
Yeah.
So the older one, they think, let's say, some
it's
problem.
bad or something.
There's no
You
way.
delete the PVC, but the PVC won't delete because it's in use. So they delete the pod. That allows the PVC to start deleting. And then
Yes.
the stateful set controller notices the pod deletion, so it creates a replacement pod, but then PVC already exists. So I guess, is it a race between?
Yeah, it's a race.
Okay. All right, I see.
Basically, the finalizer causes the actual deletion of the PVC object to take longer than in the past.
Got it. Okay. Anybody interested in fixing this issue, please reach out and help us design a fix. And then last one is Cheng. Cheng, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, so there's an effort in open source to move all the core components to distroless. So as a side effect, dependencies like shell are going to be missing from these containers. And I know a lot of flex volume tests, E2E tests, actually use shell scripts to implement the flex volume interface, and it's in the examples too. And possibly some of our users of flex volume also implemented a shell. That's not going to work if that flex volume driver needs to be installed in master. Because the control manager is going to be containerized and it's going to move to distroless. So moving forward, if we're going to pursue distroless, there are a few options we can make here with regard to Flex. I think the most promising one is really just limited so that users cannot implement Flex volume drivers with Bash, essentially, with any kind of shell scripts, if they wanted to run it in master. And I guess it's not going to be just shell that we're banning. It'll be anything that requires dependencies that the distroless image type doesn't contain. And in those cases, those users will also have to manage the installation of those dependencies for control manager if they wanted to do that.
So this might be a stupid question, but can't you add a shell on top of distroless if you want one?
I think that would be an additional dependency they will have to manually add. I don't know if there are any things to stop you from installing shell.
I guess another option that might not be listed here that maybe we should consider, but is there some way we can like add this intermediate layer between controller manager and the Flex exec to be able to, like invoke some intermediate image that does support shell?
I think one of the reasons why the security folks want to move away from shell is because shell can execute a lot of very arbitrary code, and it creates a bigger vulnerability surface.
Yeah, but I guess the main thing is that if we add one more intermediate layer, then what that lets distributions do is most distributions by default will use the distro list for controller manager, and they won't, potentially not support flex volume master stuff. But it still gives the ability for people that still need it to use it with that risk.
Okay, yeah, that sounds possible.
The one problem has been that like a lot of flex volume, even if there's a shell, they may have other dependency on the host actually. So, I mean, shell is not the only thing a flex script needs sometimes. So, it has always been problematic to run flex volume when controller manager is containerized. So, I mean, in my opinion, it might be best to actually slowly deprecate it because it never works properly. And at least in OpenShift and all, we are trying to slowly move away from it. So
I thought Flex plugins were already deprecated and you're supposed to move to CSI.
Well, Flex was never officially deprecated. It's something that we still support in API because Kubernetes has a pretty strong backwards compatibility guarantee. So deprecating APIs is difficult.
But your deployment options will get increasingly more hairy if you want to continue to use them, right?
Yes.
That'll be the upshot. So in practical terms, the way you get out of that hairy situation is move to CSI.
Yeah, we can suggest that users do that, but we can't require it.
Yeah.
I wonder how many plugins out there actually require master installations.
Does anybody on this call have a Flex driver that requires master installation?
Yeah, maybe one way to move forward is just to take a survey in the SIG, see
that's
how
a
many
good
drivers
idea.
actually require that, and if there isn't any, then we can totally just limit it.
But just as a kind of a data point, like the cases that I have debug solved, most of the customers don't have Flex driver that require control plane.
Nice. Okay.
One random question. Is security team not looking at making kubelet distro lists?
That I'm not sure.
Because kubelet would have the same problem too.
Kubelet, as far as I know, is running on the nodes directly, right? In most cases.
Yeah, I thought containerized kubelet was going
Oh,
away. It's a
yeah,
thing.
that's right.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a good step forward. Well, we'll look at the survey results. I can drive that effort. Yeah, if there's nobody using it, then we can just put a restriction on it. If there are, then
we might still have to. I don't know. We might still have to officially follow the deprecation policy, which is 1 year.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I can follow up with the owners of the distro list effort to see if that is okay. Great. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you for bringing this up.
Does this mean kubectl will not work on the master node? Because kubectl, it also runs the exec command.
That I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think kubectl is not containerized.
Well, kubectl is
right.
Separate. Okay.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, kubectl is running. If you execute it on the host itself, it should be okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks.
All right, cool. Anything else anybody wants to discuss before we wrap it up? All right, then. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll reconvene in 2 weeks.